Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Kyle here. What I want to talk about, another video game discussion thing I want to talk about, and that is was the Sony PS3, PlayStation 3, a failure? I just kind of want to get my observations on this. In my personal opinion, I think the Sony PlayStation 3, I think was a failure. I mean, it was successful, but I don't think it's as successful as Sony had hoped for it to be. And I'll just kind of break it down real quick with some of the facts why I think the PS3 was a bit of a failure. One of the reasons why the PS3 was a failure, I think, was like I mentioned in my video on my other channel, PS3, which system was better, PS3 versus 360. About the fact that one of the things that really hurt the PS3 in the long run was its overly expensive, high jacked price. It was like $500 for a system, and when it came out back in 2000, let's see, Xbox 360 came out in '06, I think. Yeah. When it came out, they really didn't have a lot of games to support the PS3 when it first came out. So with the overly jacked expensive price at that time, it was $500. Plus the games that they had to support the system, the titles were really weak. It's just, I think that really hurt the PlayStation 3. Another thing I think that hurts the PS3 is when Sony, just the lack of games to support the system. One of my subscribers, Marco Rubio, 2012, he and I, PM each other a lot when we talk about games and stuff, and he said the same thing, about it's the games that support the system, not the system itself. And that's absolutely true, because I mean, you have to have some type of game or series of games to to support the system. And then I also think too, the time frame in which they came out was kind of bogus, because Microsoft Xbox had already had like a 1 year advance on Sony PlayStation, so they had a huge library of video games from the time Microsoft first came out to the time when PS3 came out. And then on top of that, PS3 was released on the same day as the Nintendo Wii, and that sold like hotcakes. And the PS3 sold like hotcakes too, but due to the price and lack of game support in it, the Wii sold much, much more. So that really hurt them as well. And now they're saying, Sony now are saying that for the PS4, they want to release it a few months early. Honestly, I don't know if a PS4, say, well, Xbox is going to be releasing holiday 2013. So say the new Xbox comes out in November of next year. I really don't see how a 3-month in advancement release on the console is going to make that much of a difference in terms of getting the upper edge. Of course, we're going to buy the PS4 first because it'll be out first, but I don't see how that's going to get the upper edge on Microsoft. Whereas with Microsoft had a 1 year advance launch on their system, which gave them the total advantage in the gaming battlefield, hands down. So that's one thing. Another thing too, I think also kind of hurts the PlayStation 3 is that even though PlayStation 3 is now at a new lower price, a lot of people don't really care for the new slim design, smaller compact design. A lot of people hate it. They think it looks cheap. They criticize Sony for not investing too much in the outer exterior of the system, like with the first launch of the PS3, the first model, which we had the nice gloss finish, polished finish to it. So a lot of people criticized that. So that didn't help sales either, because the new PS3s didn't sit. They sold a lot, but not as many. Another thing too, which is a known fact, the PlayStation 2 has sold much more money than the PS3. Literally. And here's why. And yes, not only because PS2 is much cheaper. You can get a PS2 for like $50 and probably about 20 per game for a PlayStation 2. But I don't know why Sony does this, but Sony always makes a lucrative contract with the game developers who make games to support the systems to last for up to 10 years. So when PlayStation 2 came out back in 2001, Sony always they made a contract where for developers where when they make games for the PlayStation 2, they will make games from the day the system debuts all the way, for the next 10 years. And they've done the same thing with the PS3. So what I'm getting at is, so when you look at the PlayStation 2 games or library of video games from the time PS2 was conceived all the way up until now, the video game library for the PS2 is massive, and it's still one of the most massive library of video games, I think, next to rival the Nintendo series, like Nintendo 64. But it's huge, and it overshadows the PlayStation 3. And I think Sony I don't know why they make these kinds of contracts for their system, because it's kind of stupid, because if you want people to buy your next product, stop making games that support your second-gen console. Because people are going to still buy the second-gen console because, well, one, even still to this day, I did research on it, more people have PS2s in their homes than they do PS3. Fact. So, in order for people to stop purchasing games for the PS2, and you want them to make it, and you want to make a game that's like, oh, I got to get it, but in order to get this hot games coming out, I got to get a PS3. They have to stop making these contracts for their systems that extend for 10 years, for games being made for their systems for the next 10 years. PS3 just came out, 3 years ago. It was not that long since the PS3 came out, back in 2007. And now they make the PS4 in 2013. So even in the next, say from the year 2020 from now, they're still going to be making video games for the PS3. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I also feel, too, that because, the PlayStation 3 was somewhat of a failure, Sony, I think, they're rushing. They're rushing to make the PS4. And I hope they're successful and good at what they're doing. But they're really rushing, because Xbox has been out since, 05. So 05, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Xbox has been around for 8 years. So for them, it's almost a decade, so I can see where you come up with your next system. The PS3 has only been out for 4 years, and already they're ready to make the next system, which so I can understand because they want to compete with the competition. But still, I kind of feel they're rushing. And then on top of that, Sony, their corporation on what the PS4 is going to be made by, is going to be made by a Taiwanese manufacturing company, the developer in Thailand. Reason why is because it'll be cheaper. So because Sony has invested more money in revenue in making the PS3 than they have in receiving. So they put out more than they could take in. They really did. Like I said, the PS3 is a nice system. It's a nice system, but I think the PS3 is a failure for Sony, and it's kind of shocking considering Sony has been around since, well, the 1990s, and even before they got into game in console systems, they made video games. So it's really, really kind of sad to see such a big, major company like that to kind of see them falling through the cracks. But hey, not everyone can stay on top forever. And it is a business. You're gonna have your ups and your downs, but still, like I said, the PlayStation 2 has sold more in consoles and in video games, more than the PS3, and that's an actual fact analysis that I've looked up and seen myself, from the 2001, which was PS2 was concepted from, the year PS2 was concepted from, to 2010, which the contract is now ended for PS2. So they're not going to make any games for the PS2 anymore. Or actually, I think it stopped in 2010. The 10-year contract thing for the PS2 system. But still, PS2 I think is a much better system than the PS3. So I think the PS3 is a bit of a failure, and I think Sony are trying to save face by like I said, hiring Taiwanese people. No offense, to the Taiwanese or anything like that, but they're going to part of the development of the system is going to be made in a different country other than Japan, rather than just solely Japan, because of the cheaper labor work that'll be built into the system. And then on top of that, like I said, they're rushing it, and now they want to release it a few months early for the Xbox 720. Like I said, you guys can call me an Xbox mark, a fanboy. I've made a video on Xbox versus PS3, and like I said, for me personally, an Xbox 360 best fit suits my needs. I may get the PS4 next year, but I'm definitely gonna get the 720 first. That's what I'm gonna get. So this is just my thoughts on this discussion. Let me know what you guys think if you own a PS3 in the comments below. Subscribe. Peace.